Welcome back to Shih Tzu Talk. No, it's not Shih Tzu Talk. It is Professional Wrestling, the podcast. I know you're getting confused because you see my trusted sidekick at Chosen Ollie on Instagram, but no, this is the home of professional wrestler Mason Rush. He's back with us, gracing us with his presence and glory. Mason, buddy, what's cooking in your world today?
It's another great day in paradise. Got my Rip Impact tee on. Not a care in the world.
Amazing. Well, we got you going then. I'm here going. I'm Jonathan Hacohen, co-host and author of the Bible 3.0, where you're downloading on Audible, on Apple Books, worldwide, physical book, ebook, spiritual lifestyle guide to get your life systems and be the best you that you can be. Ollie's been listening to this book nonstop. I put on repeat for her. And dude, she's almost 11 years old and she looks like she's 5 barely.
Really?
Yeah, I attribute the book.
Before I started reading the book, I didn't even know what the gym was. And I started going to the gym after reading that book, and, it's been working for me.
You know you have a giant shout out in the book because you were training me for several years and still do. So, yeah.
Well, I throw me under the bus. I was giving you a plug. But I guess we'll let bygones be bygones.
Speaking of bygones and let bygones be bygones and everything else in the world, so we live in a very funny world, Mason. I don't know if you're aware of this or not, where everything's topsy-turvy. And there was a world once upon a time where we said, oh, there'll never be a sports team in Las Vegas because the boogeyman, professional gambling, will eat away at sports, and this shall never happen. Well, we live in a world where we have the NHL, right? The Vegas Golden Knights, not the Knights, call them the Golden Knights.
Yep.
They won the Stanley Cup, right?
Yep.
Win it again. You got the Las Vegas, don't call me the Los Angeles, don't call me the Oakland Raiders, right?
Correct.
And they hosted the Super Bowl as well. And so Vegas is going, and professional sports love gambling. Look at baseball and look at all the sports, how they're eating it up because
they're going to get a baseball team too.
The Oakland A's are heading over. That's right.
Poor Oakland.
Well, there's a bit of issues with that, and there's been a bit of issues because the Oakland A's are a bit poorly run.
Yep.
As if Ollie ran a baseball team, this is what the Oakland A's would look like because that's how they handle.
Should probably do a better job.
They should definitely be calmer.
Should be a better scout.
Absolutely. And so now with all of this going on and teams saying, hey, we can generate a lot of money, it got me thinking, right? Because I don't know if you're aware or not, I'm pretty sure you do, that there's this group called TKO. And so UFC and WWE are basically under the same umbrella. And now we're seeing a lot more endorsements and the way camera angles and pre-interviews and everything is looking very UFC-ish. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure UFC likes gambling.
The UFC is definitely a fan of gambling. They're on all the platforms, and it's a great sport to bet on.
So it got me thinking now. Are we going to see a world because Vince McMahon said he'll never see endorsements on the ring on the mat, and we saw Prime as you mentioned in the previous episode, and so slowly we're going to start seeing more and more endorsements. We're going to see it on trunks and things like that. The way we see it on jerseys of players. So are we going to see a world where we have professional gambling? We're going to be able to bet on professional wrestling. What's your take on it?
I would say at the beginning when this whole TKO thing happened, I'm a big UFC fan, big MMA fan.
You are.
So long before this crossover happened, right, there was, WWE style promos being done for UFC matches, which, in the George St. Pierre, the George Rush St. Pierre days, it was all pure martial arts. It was respect. There was no trash talk. There was no it was all just pure respect and love for the sport. And you show up and you do your job and you leave. And then you had guys like Chael Sonnen was a great example of somebody who started to bring WWE style promos into that world. Of course, it took off. Dana White saw, loved it. Right, that led to more. Conor McGregor made a whole career off of WWE promos.
Right? Colby Covington, what music?
Colby
what is that for music?
The
Kurt Angle song.
So yeah, he has the Kurt Angle. I've seen Israel Adesanya use the Undertaker, right? So that crossover is starting. But when the actual purchase happened, I noticed right away that the pressers right? Like they started doing UFC press conferences after WWE events. And I saw that and I was like, this is exactly the same setup. This Triple H is the Dana White. It's the same thing. But you can have so much more fun with it because it's pro wrestling, and the storyline, everything that's involved. So when I saw that, right, now you've got walkout interviews as they walk out. It's really a good crossover where you're taking the best from both worlds and putting them in each other's respective sports. So for the purpose of television and viewership, it's great. It's really, really good.
I mean, look, we're already seeing UFC fighters in WWE crowds during events. Yeah. You're going to see WWE wrestlers at the UFC events. You had at one point Vince McMahon and Stephanie and Triple H, and I believe Nick Khan was there, and they were sitting at a UFC fight after a WWE pay-per-view. The crossovers are happening already. It's clearly there. So let me ask you point blank.
The answer is no, but ask your question.
You don't think that we're going to be seeing actual legal gambling on wrestling events?
Okay, so I thought you were going to ask me something different. I thought you were going to ask me if you're going to see UFC fighters start making their way into the WWE. That's what I thought you were going down that road.
Oh, that's going to be another episode.
Okay, we'll save that.
And there will be, but go on.
I was going to say the answer is no to that because it ain't as easy as it looks to cross over from one to the other, and they're totally different sports. But
just as
but betting wise, I'm pretty sure in Europe there are places you can currently bet on WWE. I don't know if it's matches, if it's props, and I mean, we didn't think you'd be able to bet on your phone for hockey or basketball. So who knows what they'll be able to do and how they'll be able to do it. But it's a little bit more challenging to bet on WWE given the nature of the business,
which we will get into. But point blank at this point, if you're a betting man, is it coming?
No. Props potentially, but winning matches, it's too complicated. How do you bet on Roman Reigns winning because Solo Sikoa Samoan spiked the opponent? Like how do you put it by DQ, right? Like there's
let's say
right?
start,
or the ref got pulled out. Like there's so many stipulations other than win, loss, submission, knockout, TKO. It's very different to score. That's all.
What if we started off very simple, very, very simple? Winner, loser, no decision. Let's start off with that way. Can we see a world where there's going to be very, very simple choices? At the beginning, all you can bet on is whether somebody wins, loses, or draw.
Possible. It's possible. But then what do you have? You have every time Roman Reigns fights, it's 1,000,000 to 1 odds, right? Like, because it's you know what's going to happen a lot of the time, right? So it's possible, right? They can play with the odds and make it, worthwhile, but it's a lot harder to do. Having said that, real sports are having issues with people sitting early, faking injuries so they don't hit their numbers for their bets, right? And so what is real and what isn't, right? That it's happening across the board.
Unofficially, this is between you, I, and the camera, but I was kicking myself for WrestleMania 39 because of that one of those European sites and saying to myself, I wish I could have bet on Roman because it was like, because the odds were on Cody. Everybody expected Cody, WrestleMania 39. You would have put money on Roman. Cody was the heavy favorite. It's no different to me than Floyd Mayweather versus Conor McGregor, and how did you not bet on Floyd Mayweather? So that being said...
Or Jake Paul versus Ben Askren.
There you go. Is gambling, betting good for the sport of wrestling? Let's say it does get legalized, and let's say you are able to bet on winners and losers. Will this advance? Will this be good for the sport, or will this hinder the sport?
I am not a huge gambler. However, the few times I do, it makes it more exciting. I don't see how it can make it worse. I don't see how. I mean, it could, right? If the fans are, but that's on them, right? Not in control of their betting habits. But in terms of betting on the sport itself, I don't think it'll hinder it at all. It could even bring new fans into the sport, right? You got degenerate gamblers betting at 2 a.m. on figure skating in Japan, right? So you might bring in guys who, I'll bet on some WWE, right? Like it's people love to bet on things.
I got to say, sitting with a casual baseball fan at best, and having him sit beside me and going to a baseball game and being able on FanDuel on his app to be able to quickly bet on the game and do all those prop bets, man, he was glued to the game the whole time. And gambling definitely brings in interest to the sport.
100%.
I would say
game within the game, right?
If you take away gambling and betting altogether on the NFL, let's say there's no gambling whatsoever, no pools, no nothing, NFL has a fraction of the interest that it's got. Gambling plays a huge part in the support of the NFL.
Agree. Totally.
So that being said, now for that casual fan, if we go to a WWE live event and let's say we're at WrestleMania and there's 5 matches on that card and you get to put $10 on each match, you're definitely going to pay way more attention now to those matches
100%.
if you got some money riding on it.
Absolutely.
I remember being a youngster and sitting with a buddy of mine, and we bet the whole game $1 on each for the pitcher if it's a ball or a strike. Now, if there's a hit, doesn't count. Otherwise, ball or strike. We were definitely glued to every single pitch. It made it far more interesting. The way Michael Jordan, when he golfs, would bet on every single swing. So allegedly, that's what we hear. So I think it's going to be a really good thing, except now we get to the ugly side of sports. You've probably been hearing about it. The stories was breaking for some time now. The whole Shohei Ohtani and his interpreter and where things were going there. So long story short, for those wrestling fans that don't pay attention to baseball, Shohei Ohtani's interpreter, initially it came out that Shohei Ohtani paid off the gambling debts for his interpreter to help him out as a friend, retracted that story, said that he actually had the money stolen from his interpreter. Interpreter gets fired. Shohei Ohtani says, I've never bet on sports whatsoever in my life. For the guy who is the modern day Babe Ruth, better than Babe Ruth, in fact, he's a better pitcher than Babe Ruth, breaking all sorts of records, $700 million contract, the face of Major League Baseball. Lord forbid this guy bet on sports, let alone on baseball, with a known mobster through an illegitimate means of gambling. Real black eye on the sport where you're saying, this is not good. And now people are saying, I told you so. Gambling is bad for the sport. Do you have any feeling that way of the relationship that way of Ohtani? And let's say you, like you're hinting, let's say there is gambling on a sport and the wrestler says, you know what, I'm going to delay this match for a few extra minutes, or I'm going to do something to affect a prop bet. That starts to get a little scary.
Yeah, but that's in every sport across the board, right? You have the national anthem, you have the Gatorade color, right? You have all these prop bets where it's the same thing. You can tip someone off, right? You're the brother of the water guy, right? Like, I think that they have a good system in place where if there are bets coming in that don't make sense, they catch them and they investigate them. But the odds system with the house always wins. So
just ask Julia Hart and the House of Black.
That's it. The house always wins. Exactly. So, that's what I would say in terms of Shohei Ohtani. I think we know what happened, and I think we know how the lawyers got involved, and how everybody. This is now your story, and there's no question about it, right? And
you're going to take your $5 million, do your jail time, right? You're the one who bet. I had nothing to do with it, right?
Right. And if it's a backup player, farm team player, DH, if it's somebody doesn't make up Joey Votto, like somebody who's at the end of their career, they're not gonna look the other way. With this one, I think it's in everybody's interest for Shohei Ohtani to come out squeaky clean and move ahead. Luckily, the world has a 24-hour news cycle memory, and they'll forget about it in a few weeks and move on, and he'll hit his home runs and dingers, right? And that's the way the world works.
We live in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, and when you hear a Raptors player that I've never heard of before, and I'll never hear of him again, but he gets investigated because the amount of shots he took and how his effort on the court, and there were giant prop bets made with him specifically. That's exactly what we're worried about. You've heard this in soccer. You've heard this in tennis. And people throwing matches. This is exactly why people are afraid of gambling, because if the players get involved with it, you remember something called the Black Sox scandal of 1919 or wherever it was, and Shoeless Joe Jackson getting banned forever. Pete Rose banned for life. Should be the all-time hits leader in baseball. because he bet on his own sport while he was managing his team. These are the things we got to avoid.
Yep.
But inevitably, whether gambling is legal or not, people will always find a way to gamble. Same with prohibition, I think.
Why can't you tell your buddy what your bet is and he places a bet for you, right? Like, if you're in a professional sports league and you're not allowed to gamble and you're dumb enough to make an account with your name on it and gamble from it, then you deserve it, right? Like, you have a lot of ways to get around that if you want to make a bet on a sport. And even if you were doing that, I still wouldn't bet on your own sport because that's just bad karma and it'll get back to you at some point.
Like Shohei Ohtani's account wiring money to a known mobster versus Shohei Ohtani's account wiring the money to the Cayman Islands to several numbered companies that then wire it to themselves and then through their holdco being able to send it to the mobster.
Yeah.
I think
unfortunately, being rich doesn't mean you're smart.
Being rich doesn't mean you're smart. I love that. Well, on that token, I'm going to ask you, because the one thing people always tell me is, how could you bet on wrestling? It's scripted, so they know already what the results are at a time. And I tell them, well, you can bet on the Academy Awards, and guess what? That was voted on in advance. So how do they do that? Well, what happens is it's very secretly tabulated into an envelope, very secretly guarded by the accounting firm that's in charge, usually PricewaterhouseCoopers. And guess what? Let's say you only have betting gambling on major pay-per-views. You could have the tabulations, everything done by the person, the booker, right up until the last minute in a sealed envelope. The ref and the participants don't know what the results are going to be as they come out to the ring. And the referee's whispering to them, you can only place the bets before the start of the match. The second the match starts, then bets are canceled, no more. The same way in baseball, by the fifth inning or so, no more gambling allowed. So I think the way you can bet on the Academy Awards, that's how you can be able to gamble on wrestling.
Yeah, with odds systems, and if you have a category for, undecided or DQ or whatever, like you can make it work. But the problem is there are a lot of people that know what happened in these matches, right? Like ahead of time, right? You got the who writes them, the producers.
We got our sources.
We got lots of. So it's a lot of people that would have to keep their mouth shut. Maybe a solution to that would be write out 2 or 3 matches and then give it to the guys an hour before and have them, right? So the people who wrote it don't know which one of the 3 it could be. That would, like that could be a way around it. But I still don't think you're going to avoid it. If somebody wants to do that, they're going to do that.
Or in the future, just fire the booker. And as the match starts, just ask AI to script out the match. And then as to the ref, I think AI could come up with some better matches than what we watch at times.
Yep.
Last question for you today as we end today's episode. And Mason, you give us a lot of great insights and you're really engaging with your fans, which we really, really appreciate.
Best fans.
They are, really. Wrestling fans are the best.
Garage.
Check out Mania Club on Facebook. And man, you got some hardcores on there. Shout out to Mania Club on Facebook. I'm on there, and these people, man, they save up all year to go to WrestleMania. They buy the belts. They buy the gear. Love it, love it, love it. And, they'd be all over this as well. So I got to ask you, man, the thought of you when you're wrestling out at HPW, Hamilton Pro Wrestling, can you imagine a world where people have FanDuel open and as the card is going on, people are placing bets on you as you're wrestling? Wouldn't that be pretty freaking cool?
Yeah, that would be awesome. I wouldn't let it impact my performance, but hopefully everybody else would be the same.
So let's say you have a match and you obviously won whoever was against. And as you're walking back to the dressing room, a guy at the ramp yells at you, "Why did you have to win so quickly? You screwed up my prop bet." What would be your response to him?
Too bad. Sorry, pal.
Love it. Love it. Too bad. This is Hamilton Pro Wrestling's very own Mason Rush 33. You can catch him on Hamilton Pro Wrestling on social media, at Chosen Lawyer, Jonathan Hacohen. Send your questions, comments in the world of wrestling on Mason. Love to hear your thoughts for the fans. We'll be back real soon.
Special guest next week.
He's back again.
Oh, baby.
He's back again, the one and only Van Landen. So stay tuned, folks. We got a lot going on for you. This is Professional Wrestling, the podcast.